All right, welcome back. Sebastian here. So time for my preview for the 2025 Italian Grand Prix. Obviously, you can see the setup's a little bit different. Trying using a different laptop just because the old one is having a lot of CPU challenges, struggling to even record a single video. All right, now getting this Grand Prix preview underway, we're going to first take a look at the circuit layout. Of course, we'll be racing at Monza, the Temple of Speed. Now, Sector 1, it's really the turn 1-2 chicane, very, very tight chicane. Does lend itself towards having first lap incidents more often, I wouldn't say more often than not, but there's definitely been quite a few big dramatic crashes there over the years. Then you have turn 3, Curva Grande, as it's commonly known. That's basically all of Sector 1. Sector 2, you have the two Lesmos, and those are generally pretty medium speed corners, and then of course you have the turn 4-5 chicane as well. Going down that back straight, you also have DRS going into a scurry, but again, not really an overtaking spot. But that being said, we have seen some moves there, sometimes at safety car restarts and stuff like that. Then Sector 3 is really basically just the scurry chicane. We have seen incidents there over the years. It is a fairly high speed chicane relative to the other two, so sometimes drivers will kind of lose their wheel going through there. We have seen incidents there such as 2019 where Vettel had a bit of a whoopsie there. Then going on the back straight, leading to turn 11 Parabolica, the final corner, and of course getting a really good exit out of that corner is really key to any potential overtaking opportunities the following lap at turn 1, where of course you have the DRS going down that main straight as well. Now, in terms of circuit stats, 5.793 kilometers long, and we'll expect to have 53 laps on Sunday. Monza tends to be one of the fastest Grand Prix on the calendar because when we look at the average speed of the fastest lap, which is a 121.046 set by Rubens Barrichello in 2004, a bit of a surprise that's still holding, but the average speed of that lap is 257 kilometers an hour, which ranks first of the 24 tracks on this year's calendar. So again, not a big surprise that Monza is often one of the quickest Grand Prix of the year, usually about an hour and 10 minutes or so, an hour and 15, is usually how long it takes for the Grand Prix to run. Now, for downforce rating, it's not exactly zero. The way that I calculate it is basically relative to the minimum Monza and maximum, which is Monaco. But yes, Monza is the lowest downforce circuit on the year. Some teams, and looking at you, Ferrari, are known to basically create their own Monza spec wings that they use just for Monza. And again, one way that this does affect the racing, on top of making the fact that it makes the car a little bit more unstable, is it means that DRS is going to be a lot less effective as the rear wings are a lot thinner. So the relative effect that you get from opening DRS is a little bit less. So again, that even though you have these really, really long straights, it does make overtaking a little bit trickier. If you could somehow mandate teams that they had to run really their Monaco rear wings at Monza, it actually would probably benefit overtaking quite a bit, but it would obviously make the cars a whole lot slower. Now, full throttle, 84% of the lap, so again, very, very close to the maximum. And again, a little bit of strain on the engine here, as well as strain on the brakes, as there are quite a few heavy braking zones. Now, corner tendency is slow. Most of the corners here tend to be on the slower side, so having that mechanical grip, mechanical traction to have a good run out of those corners, again, being a rear limited circuit, is going to be really important as well. Now, pole to win percentage is 53% for the last 15 years or so. So again, a bit on the low side. So again, it is definitely possible to win this race from outside of pole. Now, for rookie out qualifying percentage, 37%, which is 8th out of the 24 tracks on this year's calendar. So again, a little bit lower than maybe people would have thought, given that many people commonly say that Monza is such a simple layout, it's an easy track. And while that may be true, it's still not necessarily easy for rookies to out-qualify their teammates here, just because I think the setup with the really low downforce is a little bit unique. Now, safety car percentage since 2000 is about 40%. We do tend to have some incidents here, but again, it depends on the year. Some years we've had like 2 to 3 safety cars, and other years we've had absolutely none. Now, of course, we had our first race here as an F1 World Championship in 1950, and of course, that was the very first year of Formula One. So one of the most, if not the most historic tracks on the F1 calendar. Now, tires for this weekend: soft C5, medium C4, and hard C3. I would have been curious to see what the soft C6 would have done in terms of just strategies, and maybe it would have forced teams to do two-stop strategy instead of basically what's likely going to happen is that most cars will end up doing a one-stop strategy. But as we look at the weather for this weekend, it is pretty warm, and again, that might mean that it might force some teams to have to do a two-stopper. Just because the thermal degradation might be quite high. Now for weekend schedule: Friday, FP1 1:30 p.m. local time, FP2 at 5, and the expected weather for FP2 is 27 degrees and partially sunny. Saturday, FP3 12:30 p.m. and then qualifying at 4 with a expected forecast of again 27 degrees and partially cloudy. And then for Sunday, Grand Prix Sunday, of course, the Grand Prix is at 3, and again, same as the last 2 days, 27 degrees and partially cloudy. So the engineers will be very happy as the weather seems to be pretty consistent all 3 days. So it'll make it, when they do all the calculations for tire strategy, setup, that kind of thing, it will make it a little bit easier for Friday, Saturday to basically figure out what's the optimal strategy for Sunday. Now for 2024, it was a bit of an interesting race, of course, won by Charles Leclerc, and a bit of an upset over the two McLarens who came second and third. Now, of course, this was the F1 debut of Franco Colapinto. Did a pretty good job that weekend, I would say. Again, not amazing. He would have some pretty good weekends shortly after that. But again, this was his start. And of course, again, that led to, some of the events that happened earlier this past year. And of course, he's now on the grid with Alpine. Now, in terms of the race itself, Lando Norris took pole, but lost the lead at the second chicane to his teammate Oscar Piastri, in what was a pretty aggressive move by the Australian, but I think it was definitely a very fair move as well. Further down the field, you had contact between Tsunoda and Hulkenberg was penalized for that. Also, Kevin Magnussen, this is where he picked up his one race ban, as he basically was penalized for, I think, pushing Pierre Gasly wide. And so again, that gave him enough penalty points to basically force him into a race ban. So he missed the following race in Azerbaijan. And again, just like how many people kind of predicted, he would be banned, by a less egregious move compared to some of the things he had been doing earlier that season. Now, in terms of the winning strategy and stuff, so I think for the McLarens, they basically opted to go for a two-stop strategy, felt that was the right way to go. The Ferraris took a bit of a risk with Leclerc, basically decided to do a one-stop strategy, very similar to what Russell had done a couple weeks earlier, except, of course, didn't get disqualified this time. But Leclerc eked it out, did that one-stop strategy, and it led him to a very popular, very famous second home Grand Prix victory for Leclerc with Ferrari. Now, for best qualifiers, I seem to have messed up the doing the animations for this, but that's okay. We'll just get them all on the screen now, and then we'll discuss. So, best qualifiers at this track compared to career average: Pierre Gasly plus 23%, median qualifying delta of 28 hundredths of a second. You will notice for this category and for the next one, worst qualifiers, the gaps tend to be very, very small, which highlights how I think the margins around Monza are so fine, just because there's relatively little time you can find in the corners, just because there aren't that many of them. Now, second, Carlos Sainz plus 21%, median qualifying gap of 67 hundredths of a second in his favor. And then third, a bit of a surprise, second weekend in a row, is Lance Stroll plus 14%, median qualifying gap of positive 0.110. So still more often than not out-qualified by his teammate, but a lot better than his career average. Now, worst qualifiers at this track, Yuki Tsunoda minus 25%, median qualifying gap of 27 hundredths of a second. So again, a bit of a small sample size for Tsunoda, so probably not entirely representative, but still something worth to keep in mind. Number two, it might be a key one when you're looking at the championship picture, and that is Lando Norris in second with a minus 21%. I believe he's out-qualified his teammate only 50% of the time at this track. Which again, compared to his career average, is 21% worse. So again, if you can do the math, it doesn't take a whole lot to figure out that, his career average is about 71%. But for Norris, keeping on track, median qualifying gap is a positive 0.059 seconds. And then number 3, Esteban Ocon, negative 14% compared to his career average, median qualifying gap of positive 0.028 seconds. Now, looking at qualifying predictions for this weekend, the 10 drivers who are predicted to outqualify their teammates are Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, George Russell, Fernando Alonso, Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon, Isaac Hadjar, Alex Albon, and Gabriel Bortoleto. In terms of gaps, I think just like last weekend, I think the Piastri gap is probably a little bit too big, and same with the Bortoleto one as well. In terms of other gaps, I think for Verstappen, 4/10 does seem a little bit big, but again, when you look at what he's done against his teammates, even at Monza, it does kind of line up with what we would expect, and lines up with what we've seen so far between the two of them as teammates. Now, in terms of predictions for this weekend, I know I've messed up the animation, so I doubt we actually got it right. Okay, it might because it's the same as last weekend. But anyway, McLaren 1-2 I think is a pretty good prediction. They're probably not going to blow another engine this weekend like they did last time. And again, Lando Norris does have a bit of a patchy record at this track. He's definitely not as strong as he was at Zandvoort, for example. But that being said, I think even though I think Ferrari might be in the mix this weekend, Mercedes, I think the temperatures are probably a bit too warm for them. Verstappen, hard to say. Again, they'll have weekends like last time out in Zandvoort where he actually looked pretty good. But this is a track that Red Bull historically has been pretty bad at, so I'm not expecting big things from them. So for my podium, I'm going to predict Lando Norris second, Oscar Piastri first, and I'm going to predict Charles Leclerc to round out the podium in third. I think podium would be a pretty good result for Leclerc and Ferrari. And again, I think realistically, they're probably not going to be able to fight with the McLarens on pace, especially race pace. Maybe Leclerc can get pole position, but I think race pace, unfortunately, that's going to be a bridge too far for them. So there you go. That is my preview for the 2025 Italian Grand Prix. Should be a good one. There's F2 as well. I believe F3 as well. Season finale for F3. So that should be pretty good as well. Not sure if I'm going to be able to do reviews of those, just with the timing and everything, but unfortunately, that's just the way it is sometimes. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.